All right. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Beskar Bucket. Once again, I'm joined by my friend Ken from the Forces Behind Star Wars.
Hello, hello, hello.
I feel like this is what, the third time we've done this now?
Yeah, I think so. It's it's pretty funny actually. I feel like um, that there's almost we're beginning to develop a rhythm. So it's like I'm the every other or or something like that.
Right, yeah. I mean, it's funny how it works out. Usually when Mike's not available for the inflatable Falcon, Ken is always ready to go, and we can always chuck out an episode of the Beskar Bucket. So,
One of the things I got to figure out how to do because I still haven't, pardon the term I'm going to use. I still haven't pulled the trigger yet with the rambling Star Wars fan. Um, but I think once I get that up and running, I'd like to, if you would be okay with it, if we do, when we do these every other episodes of the Best Car Bucket, to use those as bonus episodes for the rambling Star Wars fan.
yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't care. Use it however you'd like. But so today we're gonna be spoiler alert. I don't know if we're gonna how spoiler heavy we're gonna get, but we're gonna be talking about those first three episodes of Andor.
Well, for
So
me, I am going to commit to not be spoilery. I will talk about the show, but I won't get into the specifics necessarily of who does what or any of those things because I think there's so much richness in that new show that we could talk about it without actually giving away any details of the show.
yeah, truth honestly, like with these first three episodes, I don't think there's much to spoil as it is. I mean, if you've seen any of the promo material, there are a few things that happen that I think you would consider a spoiler, but I mean, we're treading totally new waters here. So it's not like you've got to worry about like, oh, XYZ shows up and you're never going to believe what happens. I feel like we're at least in my opinion, it's a very disconnected um how do I want to put it? Salt of the earth story thus far. At least in these first three episodes, there's not a whole lot that's going on um, in the grand scheme of the galaxy. But
Yeah, I
I
think
feel
what
like
this one of the things that's exciting about this show in general is that we're starting to see a bit more of the street level impacts of the broader conflicts,
mhm.
the broader political intrigue, the broader um, war, if you will, and it's pretty interesting considering um, how deep they're willing to go into that street level kind of thing.
Yeah, I I love and we were just talking about this before we started recording, but yeah, I just like you said, I love that we're able to see like the dirt and the grime and you can tell it's a lived in universe in the high definition that we have now. Because I know that my biggest takeaway, and like I said, we were just talking about this, but it's gorgeous. It is a beautiful show. So I think that's the biggest thing these first three episodes have going for them is that it looks like Star Wars and it looks like exactly what you would imagine.
Yeah, it's the Star Wars that you would imagine if you could touch it in your living room.
Hmm.
And I don't mean just from watching the movie in your living room, but they the detail in the props, the detail in the furnishings, the detail in the clothes. It's it's quite incredible, and there's so much. So when you watch some of these scenes, there could be 10, 15, different characters, creatures, or whatever on the screen at one time, and it's vivid and visually appealing and funky and weird all at the same time. I think I
Yeah.
spotted at least 4 or 5 different sets of goober goggles that were in this episode. That you put these goggles on top of someone's head. Yep, that's a Star Wars thing.
Right. Yeah, and it's the attention to detail that is just so impressive with. And I mean, you had that in Kenobi, you had it in The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett, but I think, in terms of set design and costume design and prop design, I think overall this is the best we've gotten. I
Yeah, and
think
I think
this is
yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
this is the best that Star Wars has looked for the Disney Plus shows.
Well, I think one of the benefits that they've had that we haven't really talked too much about is that they had a lot of time to work on this. Because they had proposed this idea, I thought, before the pandemic.
Hmm.
And they had, I'm pretty sure early on, they had almost like one of those teaser trailers where they showed you some of the behind the scenes stuff, a couple years ago, with Neil Scanlon showing some of the creatures and things like that. So this is a little bit different than, even if we say The Last Jedi or the Rise of Skywalker, where they didn't have as much time necessarily to develop all of this stuff.
Yeah, I think they had a sizzle reel for it out in the end of 2020. But I know this was something that was kicked around. I don't want to say like immediately after Rogue One came out, but fairly shortly thereafter. Um, this was already an idea that was being tossed around to do a prequel series with Cassian. Um, so I mean, this like you said, this has been in development for a while.
And one of the other things that makes this series a little bit different than some of the other ones is, yeah, you have some of the big names involved behind the scenes. So, like I mentioned, Neil Scanlon, the creature designer, and so on. But not as many of the big names worked on. I mean, yeah, Tony Gilroy has written stuff for. I thought he had written stuff for either Rebels or Clone Wars or something. Um, but many of the folks who are involved in this, from the maker standpoint, are somewhat new, even to the point where Diego Luna himself is. Not only is he acting in this show, but he's also serving as a producer of this show. Similarly to Ewan McGregor with the Kenobi show.
Hmm.
Ewan served as I thought he was either a producer or an executive producer on that show. So you've got a lot of excitement and creativity and freshness to it. Not saying that the historic makers aren't great. I mean, you hopefully by this point that I worship them in incredible ways, and I'm very thankful for what they've done. And this this new thing shows its newness based on those different makers that are either behind the camera or writing the scripts or even working on the costumes and stuff.
Hmm.
Yeah, the costumes look Star Warsy, but it's not necessarily things that we've seen before exactly.
Right.
The hats and even though I mentioned those silly goggles, they're not the same goggles that Luke wore on Tatooine, and you know, so there are things that are definitely Star Wars um, appropriate, and then there's other things that are just so fresh that this is the new thing. This is the different iteration of it, even though it fits in so well, so cleanly.
Yeah, they're doing an excellent job of making it feel like Star Wars without taking something that's already been used. So they're doing new things, but keeping in the same path that has already been dug out.
Yep,
So,
absolutely. One thing I thought, this is this is the costume nerd in me, the guy who spends way too much time pausing something and looking at it closely. But I'm pretty sure one of the characters was wearing a jacket cloak kind of thing with a
Mhm.
visible zipper.
Oh no. God forbid we have zippers in Star Wars.
So when I
Right.
watched, you know, it had to be, maybe 4 o'clock or something this morning. I'm pausing it and I'm going up close to the screen. I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's a zipper. I'm pretty sure that that's what I see.
Yeah. Well, speaking of pausing and analyzing costumes, not exactly a costume, but a prop. What did you think of B, the new droid?
So, so there are two things about it. First of all, it's so damn cute. Like it's such a cool droid.
Right?
And secondly, I was very surprised at its voice. The fact
Yeah.
that the fact that it actually had a voice. Okay, so I apologize for the folks that are listening. The spoiler: this robot talks.
Yeah. I don't think that one's that much of a giveaway, but um, yeah, I do. I fell in love with him because like they they showed him in at Comic Con with the Black Series,
Okay,
because they're doing a 2-pack with Cassian and him. So we saw him and I was like, this looks terrible. Like just from what we see with the Black Series action figure, I was like, God, I hope that's not what he looks like on screen. Because it was just I don't know why it looked so awkward in like the 6-inch scale, but seeing him on screen, I cannot wait for Mr. Bagley to release the files for that because that is a droid that I want to print. He is adorable, and I
well,
love
I want
him.
to figure out, and I haven't built any droids yet, other than the ones that you can get at Batu or whatever. But it would be cool to not just build this droid, but figure out how to make it mobile. You
Right.
know, tracks or treads or wheels or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't think so. Basically, at least this is what I gathered: is he looks like a mashup of an astromech droid and a gonk droid. So I don't think that it's going to be too different. Now the stacks, if you will, that kind of make up his separated body. Um, I don't know how you would get that motion down, but I feel like, I mean, just the same way that people do the 3 legs in an astromech droid, you just add one more, and then you've got the the motion. So
Yeah.
I don't think it'd be terribly difficult.
Well, I think it may be challenging to get it to have the screen kind of motion where it's top its hood or its head or its hat where it kind of tilts and then shimmies up and down on a like a piston and stuff like that.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
it was incredibly creative and fantastic.
Yeah, and it makes me want to know if that was a real prop that they used or if that was totally CG.
Well, yeah, that's definitely some of the magic that'd be fun to see. And if I was a betting man, and I know I live next to Atlantic City, and I don't bet as much as I could or should, um, it may be like BB-8 where they had multiple versions of it. They had the BB-8 on a like a that you could roll around, and then you had the BB-8 where somebody controlled the head, and then you had the radio controlled one. So I mean, who knows? There might be several of those droids available depending on what scene they're shooting.
Hmm. Yeah, I and again, if I were a betting man, just like you, I would say we're gonna get a gallery series at the beginning of the year.
I hope so.
So, yeah, because I really want to see. So I was interested when they did the gallery for the Mandalorian, the Book of Boba Fett, and then obviously the new Obi-Wan documentary that we talked about last week. But I actually, this is the one that I'm most excited to see the behind the scenes for.
Yeah, and just considering the sheer volume of this show, There's so much that's possible.
Right. Well,
One of
it's funny
Yeah,
that you
go ahead.
bring up volume because all of this was shot on set. You want to talk about a hell of a segue right there. You don't get
Well
much better
played,
than
sir.
that. But I think there is something to be said about, a lot of, or I believe all of it was shot on location. So, which now look, I love volume. I think it is the greatest technological improvement that we've made in film in decades. Um, However, it is impressive to see them going out and actually filming everything on location and doing things practically as opposed to using the volume. So and I'm shocked that it's all on if I'm remembering correctly, I believe it is all on location.
Yeah, I can't remember if it's all on location or mostly on location. Um, and either way, it's freaking gorgeous and huge. Even though, and I the phrase I'm about to use has the potential to sound like I'm minimizing it, and I don't mean any insult by it. Even though it's just a TV show,
Right.
yeah.
But it's a
So
TV show with a film budget.
yeah, that's true. That's I guess that's an important thing to. It's not like Days of Our Lives kind of budget. It's
Right.
it's
No
much
no
larger than that.
no cardboard sets. This isn't Star Trek.
I mean, even down to the speeders and stuff. I don't. Now that we're talking out loud, I don't. I would still have to guess that some of it is on the volume, because there are some scenes that I'm just scratching my head trying to figure out how they could film that in live action
Right.
without it being on the volume.
And if it is on location and it's none of it's in the volume, that makes it even more impressive
Yeah.
what they're able to do, or what they're willing to do, I should say, because we know they're able to do it. But the fact that they're willing to do everything on location and have these organic sets, it's there is something to be said. Like I said though, this is not me discrediting or whinging about the volume. It's simply I think it's fascinating to see that we're now going back to on location filming.
Well, I think the volume is a wonderful example of the innovation that Star Wars is known for. And so the time, effort, and energy that was put into the creation of the volume and then the use of the volume just adds one more tool to this already robust box of tools that they have available to them. I mean, these folks use everything from stop motion animation um, to giant props on screen, and now the volume where they can film a sunset and have that sunset stay there, that sun or twin suns stay in that same position for hours, casting light on the actors and actresses without having to worry about clouds or rain or any of that sort of stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
it's amazing what they've been able to add to their list of things that are available to them when it comes to creating some of these things.
Right. Yeah, I'm blown away with how far Star Wars has just continued for the last 45 years to just push the envelope of technology.
Yeah, one of the things I would really love to see too. So when the Lord of the Rings came out by Peter Jackson and was filmed in New Zealand and stuff, they actually turned some of those things into tourist destinations. You could go and see some of these things that they created, and just based on the scenery and the sets that they've created just in these first 3 episodes, like I would love to go to that planet and see this shop, or get like almost like photo ops at some of these places that show up on this screen. I'd love to be the guy with the two big metal hammers banging on that neighborhood bell. Just it seems like a fun place to visit and see
Right.
live and in person.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of it is, that was a built set. Granted, I don't know if that was a set or if that was somewhere that they retrofitted, same way they did with like Mos Eisley in out in Tunisia. But yeah, no, that's the magic of it. Is it looks so real that it could actually exist.
Yeah.
So yeah, overall I'm extremely pleased with how it looks. Uh, I will say though, kind of shifting from looks to now story. Um, the I'm in love with Stellan Skarsgård's character. I knew I was going to be, but without giving anything away, he brings a moxie and an attitude that I think is very much so needed at this point in Cassian's life. Just from
Oh
what we've seen thus far.
goodness, yeah, and just his his delivery of lines, his presence on screen is something that can't be easily replicated. There's only one him, and it doesn't
Mhm.
matter if it's in the Star Wars universe or if it's playing opposite of Thor in the Marvel universe.
Right.
He is such a great actor, and all of the folks that we've seen so far, they make you believe that this is legit, this is real, this is happening as you're seeing it.
Hmm.
It's not like some movies that you watch, like, yeah, this is definitely a movie. Like this stuff, it feels documentary, like realistic. It feels authentic, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, and I think it's something there's the term that you have to go into every single piece of media, not or every single piece of fictional media, is the suspension of disbelief. And I feel like recently, that's again, I'm probably not gonna make too many friends by saying this, but I feel like that's lost in a lot of big blockbuster media, where you go in and you're like, okay, well, there is no way that any of this is possible. And I think that Andor is, like you said, it feels real. It's documentary like, um, and I think that it's nice. It's a nice change of pace to see that being able to go into it with that suspension of disbelief is a nice change from what I'm used to seeing.
Yeah, and I'm hopeful that with this show and everything that comes after it, that folks are willing to sit down and just take in what they're being presented and then make the connections to things, instead of, okay, before I turn on the TV, I want to see A, B, and C. And if I don't see A, B, and C, I'm going to be mad. And if I don't see A, B, and C, I'm going to get online and say how bad it was. Or if I don't see A, B, and C, I'm going to insult the makers or whatever. Just watch it. Just watch it and
Mm.
s- and see what shows up. See where the connections can be made or are made. Listen to the music that's being played, because this is another Star Wars offering that has different people involved in the music, different people involved in the costume. So there's a freshness to it, even though it's still in that same galaxy far, far away that George and Ralph and Richard Edlund and Joe Johnston and all those folks created all those years ago. It's in the same neighborhood, just with new seamstresses and carpenters and musicians.
Yeah, I think the age of Star Wars that we're in right now. Now, look, I wasn't alive. I'm using this just as a frame of reference. I feel like this era of Star Wars that we're in right now, it seriously reminds me of like when after Jedi, before Phantom Menace, when you had all these different authors writing books. And it, you've got the Mandalorian, that's Jon Favreau. You've got Obi-Wan, that's Deborah Chow. And then honestly, I don't know the showrunner for Andor, and I feel like a bad fan.
Well, you pretty much are. I mean, I'm glad you admitted that out loud. It's um, Tony Gilroy's the writer,
Gotcha.
and I'm not sure who the director is. Um, and now I'm a fake fan.
Wow. At least we both are. Stephen Schiff is the showrunner.
Okay.
Also, this kind of real quick going back to what we were talking about earlier. This was announced in November of 2018. So 4 years ago is when this show was announced.
Yeah, and compare that to how quickly we went from The Force Awakens to the Rise of Skywalker.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
But yeah, so back to what I was saying. This feels like when you had all these different authors writing books, so you've got all these different takes. Now you've got shows that have different people's views and ideas, and their different cinematography and their different writing styles. But instead of having to read it, you've got it on screen where you can see it. So I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like this is similar to where you had all these different books that were coming out, and you've got different authors' writing styles.
See, I think it's similar, yet kicked up 15 notches.
Right.
So then it was the novels and the West End games and the comic books. Now it's those things. Well, not so much the West End games, but the comics, the novels, the audio books, the animated stuff, and the live action stuff. And we're at the place now where we're getting live action Star Wars on a weekly basis piped into our house.
Mm-hmm.
We're not spending $8, $9, $15, $22 per movie ticket to go see something in the big screen. I think it's what, $13 per month for Disney Plus, and I apologize Disney Plus for not knowing how much my membership is per month, but it's piped into my living room, or if I want to, I can watch it on my phone during a Zoom meeting at work. Not that I've ever done that. So for all my coworkers that are listening, I've never done that. I'm just saying I could if I wanted to.
Exactly. Yeah, we're model employees. We would never watch anything while we're getting paid.
Yes.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. Because like you said, not only do we have the books, the comics, the audiobooks, all that, but we also were getting the same thing on screen.
One thing I was surprised by with the Book of Boba Fett that we didn't get, that we've gotten with some of the other stuff, is we didn't get the art of Boba Fett, and we didn't get a making of book of Boba Fett.
Mm-hmm.
I was very surprised that we didn't get either one of those things.
Yeah, honestly, I'm shocked just as much as you are. Did we get one for Obi-Wan, or has that been announced yet?
Nope, hasn't even been announced yet. Because I looked for both of them, I haven't seen anything. Whereas the other ones, I mean, you could order it before the show was over.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And for the Mandalorian, you were able to. I think they had 2 art of books.
Yeah, because they had one for season 1 and 2. So
yeah, we haven't gotten anything for Book of Boba Fett or Obi-Wan.
That's interesting. Yeah, I didn't realize we didn't get one for either of those shows.
And we haven't gotten, other than being on Disney Plus, which I think is wildly wonderful, we haven't gotten them on DVD or Blu-ray.
Oh, I don't think you'll ever see them. I think they're going to keep that to a Disney Plus exclusive. Because I mean, at the end of the day, you're going to make more money just by, making people keep their subscription. Why would you let someone buy it if they're going to pay every month to watch it?
Yeah, that's true.
But I would love to have a steelbook collection of all these Disney Plus shows, but I think they're because the unfortunately the art of disc media is almost completely dead. Um, I mean, if you've been to your local Best Buy, Target, Walmart, I guess not so much Walmart because they've got a lot of like the bargain movies, but I know I go to Best Buy pretty frequently, and like it seems like every time I go, the DVD section is just getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller.
Yeah, and I miss those like you said, the steelbook sets or even the special sets. I didn't get the really big one when Rise of Skywalker came out, that ginormous one that I think had like 15 or 20 discs to it, but I did get
Mhm.
phase 1 and phase 2 of the Marvel movies. They came in really cool cases and had some props and extra bits with them.
Mhm.
I and part of it might just be because I'm a collector. I'm like Smaug in my house. So like I'll just get all sorts of stuff and hunker over it, protecting it like gold. Um, but I would like to see some of that stuff, like you said, in a collection that can go up on the shelf next to the other things.
Right. I've got so many copies of Star Wars movies that I want to have everything in the same format all at once. Not including my 112 copies of Revenge of the Sith. That's its own collection.
Does it
But
take up one shelf or two?
four.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Granted, it's on the the oh, what's it called? The hutch of my desk.
Oh, okay.
So it's four small shelves. But I think if I put it on a bookshelf, like a real bookshelf, it would probably be like one and a half,
Okay.
maybe two. But either way, what did you think of Bix, the new
Oh,
mechanic
I
character?
thought she was fantastic. And
Yeah,
she almost, from what I heard, she almost didn't audition for the show,
really?
because when they were doing the auditions for the series, it was during the pandemic.
Mm,
When she was a little bit nervous about going to this audition because the pandemic was just starting to become a thing and places were getting locked down and putting in more regulations and guidelines of things, and she almost didn't go, and her mom talked her into it.
hmm, interesting. I didn't know that. Yeah, I think she again. She's another character that adds more depth to where we're at in this story. Um, because like we've seen rebels like in the rebellion, not the show, not to be confused. But we haven't seen them this up close and this like almost in a microscope.
Yeah,
Um, so you can see like she's got a. Yeah, I don't want to get too far into spoiler territory. Um, but like you see like the routes that she has to take to achieve her objective. Does that make sense? Are
yep,
you picking up what I'm putting down?
I'm picking up what you're putting down.
All right.
And what I also think is interesting too about the show that falls in a certain place in the Star Wars timeline. So far, we haven't really seen too many specific references to some of those larger entities.
Mm-hmm.
So Jedi and Sith and Empire and Emperor and the Senate and all of these sort of things that hasn't shown up too much yet in these first three episodes. There's some subtle nods and mentions to them, but it's not in your face.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could probably count on one, maybe two hands the mentions of, the overarching universe.
Yep.
Um, so I think that's you're right. They're staying low to the ground and playing it close to the chest right now. Granted, we all know that it's going to ramp up and it's going to become a much broader story. But I think they did it really well for these. Now, granted, if they would have stuck with their plan and released the first 2 episodes, I don't think that it would be as well received as it is with. Because the way I look at it is this is a trilogy of episodes. This is your prologue to get you into the overarching story. I think if they would have released the first 2 episodes, you would have had a lot of people fall off the wagon because
Oh yeah, I would agree with that. I totally would agree with that.
Now obviously, like, you and I, or also like diehard fans, of course we're gonna be sitting at the edge of our seat, like, okay, what happens next? But I when I say that, I mean like some more the casual fans are like, oh well, there's a new Star Wars show out. Let's see what that's about.
Yeah, I don't think this is at least right now from what I've seen, that this is the show that folks will just enter into. Like, oh, there's a Star Wars thing. Maybe I'll watch this one. I think you'll watch it on purpose because of stuff you've already seen, or because of actors that you're familiar, or characters you're familiar with. Mm-hmm. We watched that movie with that Cassian guy. He's in the show. Okay, then I'll watch it. But I don't think folks will just sit down and watch this fresh and not having seen any other Star Wars.
Right. Yeah, I think you already have that show with The Mandalorian. I'm a firm believer, and I think anyone could pick up The Mandalorian as their first experience with Star Wars and instantly be hooked.
Because I agree.
Because the first season is totally disconnected. The only thing you really need to know is, okay, he's a bounty hunter. We have bounty hunters in the real world. Okay, check. The Empire was taken down. They explain that pretty clearly. And then this baby Yoda, this little green character. Oh, I know who Yoda is just from general pop culture. So I think the Mandalorian is an excellent springboard into a larger world.
Oh goodness, yeah, absolutely. And there are enough connections to that larger world to make it exciting and intriguing and curious. Like, oh, like how does this fit there? Oh yeah, I see where that connection is to the other thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like Andor. If the Mandalorian is your launching point, and the Mandalorian is like the tip of your iceberg, I think Andor is when you're going to start getting below sea level. I think that's when you're really going to see the depths of the iceberg here. So, because like you said, I agree. I don't think this is a casual show. I think this is, most people who are going to go into this should have some prior knowledge. So, yeah, I think right now it's we're at an excellent point. However, I've seen some negativity online.
Why am I not surprised?
Right, because because they didn't release 4 episodes. Because apparently, I know. Look, don't give me that look.
Say that again. So they're mad because that they only got 3.
Now the reasoning behind it is, and I'm not gonna name which YouTuber I saw this from, because I don't want to shine any light on it, or any more light, I should say. But apparently, the reviewers that are ranting and raving about this show, got 4 episodes instead of 3. And apparently the 4th episode is really where it kicks it into high gear. Yep.
So
yeah, process that.
We're going to get it, right? Like, so we'll get to see it, right? It's not like, they got to see an episode that nobody else will see.
Right. And like I was saying, you know, it these first three episodes they're a slow burn. I don't know if I said that on air or not, but either way, so I think a lot of these people are like, oh well, it's not action packed, and apparently this mystical fourth episode that we haven't seen yet is really where the action kicks off, and it's just like that's not what this show is supposed to be about. This is supposed to be a drama.
Well, and so let's explore a couple interesting realities related to the show. It's 2 seasons.
Hmm.
Each season is 12 episodes. So we know it's going to take us a while to get through all of it. And while I'm not a fan of assuming, because we all know what happens when you assume, or at least in the words of my grandfather, when you assume you make an ass out of you and you piss me off. But that's different. Um, we can assume that it's going to take us a little while to explore everything, and not everything is going to be obvious from episode 1.
Hmm.
So, with that in mind, how about we just watch it? Just
Just what?
knowing, just watch it. Knowing that the stuff in episode 6 of this series will connect to the 5 before it and the 5 or whatever after it, the 6 after it. Like, just watch.
I know it's a concept, right?
And and so so and I also want to point out that we're living in a world where we have Star Wars piped into our houses weekly. Live action Star Wars weekly. What is there really to complain about? Like,
Your guess is as good as mine.
so, and maybe it's folks just attempting to get attention or be heard or whatever. Just enjoy it, or not, and that's fine. Don't enjoy it. Just don't enjoy it over there. I
Right.
don't. I don't. I don't.
Yeah. It look, I'm a big wrestling fan, and in wrestling terms, this is this is getting a pop. So essentially what that means is you're saying things or you're doing things just to get a reaction. Be
Gotcha.
that good or bad. And
Gotcha.
that's my biggest takeaway from that is, you know, that's the problem with some of these fans is um they're going for the cheap pop. And complaining that we didn't get a fourth episode because apparently that's where it all kicks off is the lowest form of I don't even have the words to describe that, but when I when I saw that this morning, I just my eyes about rolled out of my head. Because I'm like you said, we're going to get it. We
Yeah.
only have
Yes. Next
6
week.
more days until we get it.
It's right around the
So,
corner. It'll be here. It'll be here before you know it.
I promise it's not going anywhere.
I mean, with that logic, you can say, "I can't believe we don't know how this ends."
Right, it's like you would expect what? Did you expect it to go from episode 1 to at the end of these 3 episodes be right up at the start of Rogue One? There is at least 12 more hours of story to tell. Because I
Which,
mean
in and
if
of
every
itself,
episode
is amazing.
right.
That's
That's 4 feature-length movies.
Yeah. I was just gonna say that's more than the original trilogy. That's like that's bonkers.
That is more maybe not exact science. That's more than the prequel and the original trilogy. Depending on how long each episode is, depending on how
Yeah.
long each movie was. Because I think it was like 12 hours and like 50 minutes, something like
Yeah.
that, to watch the entire
Yeah.
1 through 6.
It's a lot. It's a lot. So
Yeah.
just hold your horses, cool your jets,
Pump the hate brakes.
Pump the hate brakes. Just, just watch it. Just watch it. Just watch it. They'll answer some of your questions. They will surprise you. There's more to see here. We won't see it all in the first 3 episodes. And speaking of, you mentioned that the folks who got to see the preview, and I'm going to guess that one of our friends was in that list of people who got to see not that I'm going to name names and say that I'm jealous of her. However, I am jealous of her, and I hope she enjoyed it. Actually, I'm going to guess that she did, because she seems to be the person that would, or a person that would. I just lost my train of thought. Oh, so at Celebration, they showed different trailers during different panels.
Mm-hmm.
And there were a whole lot of folks who either recorded it and then posted the shoddy Blair Witch Project video on YouTube that you could barely hear or barely see. And then there were other folks who were complaining that folks at Celebration got to see this thing that other people didn't. But dude, that's life. Like,
that's the whole point.
You're not going to get it all. That was a special thing for those people that went to that event and were in that space at that time.
Yeah, at some point, like, whether it be monetarily or just through sheer work and effort, a lot of the times you're gonna pay to get that early special treatment. And the people at Celebration, they paid a lot of money to go to Celebration. It's not cheap going to Anaheim, California for 4 or 5 days. Those tickets were not cheap either. Or in the case of the the early screenings or the reviewers, they worked long and hard, and they earned their right to be, critics and respected in the industry to get to see that extra episode.
Yeah, and it's like with going to the trailers that were shown at Celebration, we got them. Like that.
Yeah.
The Mandalorian season 3 trailer is now out there for us to view, and I don't know if it's because so many of the pirated versions were put out on YouTube, and Disney just said, they've already seen crappy versions of this, let's give them the better ones, or they had planned it the whole time that they were going to show this trailer at some point.
Mm-hmm.
But in truth and reality, as harsh as this may sound, not everybody gets the same stuff all the time. And it's not as if this 4th episode will never be seen by anybody else. It's coming next week, 6 days.
Right. Well, with that, I think that's a pretty solid short episode there. You got any parting thoughts you'd like to get off your chest before we wrap it up?
The only thing I want to get off my chest is I want to say thank you to to Disney Plus and all the folks that were patient enough through the pandemic, patient enough to craft and create and make this show for us. So I can't say thank you enough to those folks, because just in these 3 episodes alone, I'm wildly impressed, and I'm super excited about what I'm going to see in the next coming episodes.
Yeah, I just to echo that, it's weird to think that it's been 3 weeks since it was supposed to come out, and we're all, as soon as we see that it's been delayed 3 weeks, we all get up in arms, but it feels like it was like 10 minutes ago. In comparison to the fact that we've known this is coming, this show's been coming for 4 years now. So I'm incredibly grateful to finally see it on screen and in its entirety, in quotes.
Yeah. Those 3 episodes in its entirety.
Exact. Thank you. But yeah, I can't agree with you more that I'm incredibly grateful to finally see Diego Luna reprise his role as Cassian Andor. Yeah. However, I hate how Stellan Skarsgård says Andor.
Andor? Cassian Andor. Well, for me, it's a wonderful throwback to the originals.
Yeah, that's true.
because even Luke, or sorry, even George Lucas would say the names differently. So whether it was Han or Han, Leah, Leia.
Yeah.
The only one that they didn't necessarily mix up too much was Luke. It was always Luke.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
but
George,
yeah,
is it Han or is it Han? I don't know.
yes,
Whatever sounds right to you.
yeah. Just said faster, more intense.
Faster, more intensity. But all right,
Well,
well, I
thanks for
think
having me on another episode tonight. I really appreciate it.
yeah, absolutely. We'll be back next week with the inflatable Falcon. Hopefully, thankfully, we'll only have one episode of Andor to for you and I to review. We got to get Mike's thoughts on all this. So
Yeah, and I'm sure he'd be
yeah,
willing to share them. And we'll definitely have to make sure that you all catch up with us on the next episode of the Inflatable Falcon because we got some important troop time to talk about.
yes, we do.
So,
But what's going on with the Force Behind Star Wars before we go?
so I'm going to be purchasing my domains this weekend. So I'm going to purchase the forces behind Star Wars. We're
Mhm.
going to be recording, I believe, in 2 weeks, and we're going to talk about Andor. That's what the guys
Perfect.
wanted to do. Originally we were going to do a couple episodes on the Light and Magic, the documentary, the docu-series, but
Mhm.
instead we shifted our attention to Andor. And then for the Rambling Star Wars fan, that solo
Right.
project that I've been working on, I'm going to buy the two domains. I'm going to buy the .com and the .net, and then get a couple episodes recorded and at least get that introductory episode out into the universe for folks to listen to and see if they want to follow and subscribe and all that jazz.
Awesome. Well, I'm really excited to listen to that. I think look, you are one of my favorite people to talk to because you are just so well articulated in the way you speak and in your manner of speaking that I can't condone a solo Ken show anymore. So I'm excited. I'm excited for you to finally get the Ramblin' Star Wars fan off the ground, and of course I'm very much looking forward to the new episode of the Force Behind Star Wars.
Awesome, and I'm hoping folks will also tune into Star Wars Geek Girl, the other member of the unifying fandom podcasting network that we've got. So,
Yeah.
with
Well, go ahead.
I was going to say, with that, thank you so much again, and it was fantastic hanging out with you, talking about Andor for as long as we did.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a short episode, all things considered, for us. But yeah, it was great chatting with you. Real quick, make sure you listen to the Forces Behind Star Wars, the Ramblin' Star Wars fan, when it gets up and going. I'm gonna need to get a new banner, but and then of course the Inflatable Falcon podcast. That is Wednesday nights at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then you are listening to the Beskar Bucket, and I appreciate you guys hanging out with us.